Hey, it's news from heaven. Today, the inner part of heaven is more perfect. How are you going to have something that's more perfect than something else? Isn't perfect just arbitrary? And in heaven, aren't we not supposed to compare stuff like that? What excited me about this number in Swedenborg is that here we get a really tangible and unexpected definition of what perfection is, and this cool way that these different layers of heaven, of spiritual reality, relate to each other. And we're going to go down that journey here today. I'm excited to do it with you. You all right? Are you ready? I mean, I don't know if you got yourself in the mood to learn weird spiritual stuff before you clicked play, but here you go. Here's a second to do it. Let this stuff, I'm leading you in a guided meditation now. Let this stuff that's sort of being in the way of the goodness get out of here. You're welcome. Let's see what we can do. And why are we doing this in the first place, man? I'm hoping that we can clear out the unnecessaries. I just was the other day hanging out in my own mind. I know, why would you do that? And just noticing, there is so much unnecessary chatter. Just stuff that is just almost unapologetically. Oh yeah, that's there. I'm sure you can hear that. There's my daughter will be chiming in every once in a while. She's in the other room. So hey, we're all in this together, working from home. Global pandemic, blah blah blah. There is stuff in my mind that is just absolutely not contributing, and it's just trying to make me upset about whatever I'm trying to not be upset about, whatever I'm trying to build constructively in there. There's just this negativity that comes in there and tries to wreck everything. And how do we get out of that? How do we find a way? Because there's real good stuff that's there too. And it's just how do you get that stuff to dissipate? So I find it's through building out an understanding of what is. And so let's see if we can augment or tweak that here today. We're deep into Secrets of Heaven. 9666 subsection 2. I know, it's a little mainstream. Everybody talks about 9666 subsection 2. Couldn't you be a little more edgy? No, we can't. We got to be right here. No one can know what the situation is in all this. By this, we're talking about what came previously. So go ahead and grab the book, and you can fill yourself in on what this is referring to. But it's its own complete thought, so don't panic. Without knowing the relationship between inner and outer dimensions in the spiritual world. I thought the spiritual world was the inner dimension and the physical world was the outer dimension. Didn't all of us? I mean, we've got this life that we're in, but if you look deep within, maybe there's something of the spirit in there. It's not just that. What we actually have is a multi-layered reality that's a little bit like in Shrek, onions. Donkeys have layers. Spiritual worlds have layers. So here you have, this is the physical world. This is what you and I are in and we can agree exists. And then here, this is the spiritual world that people sometimes get insight into. And according to Swedenborg, is actually the living force behind everything we experience here, the animating force here. But even within the spiritual world, there are inner layers there. That there's as much distinction from here to here as there is from there to there. It's not just a duality, it's a multiality. Yeah. That is a cool word. What is the best and purest, and therefore more perfect than the rest, is deepest within. And you could find yourself a little bit put off by hearing talk of the best and the purest stuff, because that just seems so much like it's a comparison and there's a hierarchy and it's competitive within the spiritual things. But this is the way Swedenborg talks about stuff. I think by getting some insight into what he means by that, we can see why would you qualify stuff like this? What role does it play? Why is it useful to have these distinctions? So let's see if we can get a sense of that. So we do know that whatever's best and purest is what is deepest within. So when we go over here, this right here, this is the best and purest. It's within these layers. And I think, not too many people would complain too much at thinking, oh yeah, the physical, this has got to be something that's imperfect, because life experience here is so fragmented and so, just what's it like to be alive? It's fine sometimes, but it's not always that great. And there's no way that this is actually the ideal mode of existence prescribed by love and wisdom that's coming from God. Come on, don't sell me that. But it does give me some peace to think, okay, this is just the least perfect iteration of it. And as we move inward, it gets more and more like it really should be. Okay, all right. What radiates outward from there is less perfect in proportion to its distance from the center. And finally, what is outermost is least perfect at all. And here's a handy dandy reference number if you want a little bit more on that. You know how in our show we're always like, go see this show we did, go see that show we did. Swedenborg does that too, because when you have a whole new map of how everything is, you got to cross-reference. You're never going to make it in this world without cross-referencing. Less perfect. Okay, let's get into this term. Yeah, that's insulting. Why are you calling me less perfect? Or why are you calling these things less perfect? And this is what hooked me. Less perfect describes that which can more easily be distorted out of its true shape and beauty, and therefore out of its proper constitution. I never thought of perfect as that. So here, where we're defining less perfect, something that can be more easily distorted out of its true shape and beauty, therefore out of its proper constitution. Not even to say that it's how it should be is less beautiful or something, but it can more easily be compromised or corrupted. That's what gives you the difference between something that's less perfect and more perfect. So I just would have thought like it's the outer form or something. Like if this is, this is going to be a real test of my drawing skills here. If this is, the least perfect form of a house there, then spiritually you're starting to get a little more recognizable as a house. And then here, perfectly straight lines, exact proportions, the ultimate house. That's what it is. But what we're saying here is that really what makes the distinction is that this, should outside forces try to mess with it, will stay true to being a house. It's more the structural integrity of these goes down in descending order, and that is what is going into perfection. So perfection is linked a bit to dependability here. Yeah. Okay. And can you please illustrate this for us in a way that we can understand? If this is really a principle that echoes out across the entire of the spiritual world, that is how all of reality is, shouldn't we see it somewhere? I mean, is it really the same author that wrote all the stuff we do see around us in the physical world? Here's an example. The case is like that of fruit. At the core of a fruit are the seeds. You know what? This is so unnecessary, but I'm going to draw this as we're talking about it. Okay, here we've got our generic fruit, and at the core of the fruit are the seeds. Okay? Man, aren't you glad I'm here to do this for you? Outside them is the pulp. So this is a blue fruit, so we've got ourselves some kind of pulp out here. The state of the seeds is more perfect than the state of the surrounding pulp. No offense to the pulp. I mean, that's what we eat and everything like that. As proved by the fact that even when the pulp decays, the seeds remain whole. There you go. Because what is the purpose of the fruit? What's the purpose of this whole thing? That is the germination. It's the continuation of whatever tree species, look at that tree species, had this fruit in the first place. The purpose of this whole contraption is to make more trees and potentially a whole other forest of trees. So the pulp does something in that, but it's really, I mean, what's carrying the purpose of this? It's these little seeds in here. And that this surrounding thing it plays an important role. I mean, you look at the way that seed spreaders work. The pulp is what entices some animal to come and eat it and then poop the seeds out, and that distributes them through the forest. It's really important, but it's not, the pulp passes away. Think of it like the boosters too on a rocket, that they're going up, but they fall off once you've escaped Earth's orbit or gotten where you need to go. Okay. At their core is a reproductive force and then we go even within, if we could blow up what these little seeds are like, and you have one little seed here. At their core is a reproductive force whose state is more perfect than that of the material outside it, because when the outer layers decompose, the reproductive force maintains its integrity and produces a new tree or plant. He didn't have these words for it, but I think what we're talking about here with reproductive force, we would now know as DNA, right? That in here, there's the genetic code for the seeds. So that for the next plant. So that even here, there's an outer shell that decays away and it's really useful, but it's not the purpose. And it serves a part and then it's done. But this reproductive force, or this DNA in here, whatever else accompanies it to make it turn into a tree, that stuff goes forever, right? Because that's in the next plant. That's the long after we forgot about the pulp around it a long time ago. This outer shell disappears, but this genetic material in here, it's working for the whole next generation. I mean, it is going in and doing all these amazing things. There's a function provided by the pulp, right, to get the animal to go disperse it. It's essential. You've got to have it. There's a function provided by the outer shell, which is to make sure it's protected and split when it's right, and make sure it doesn't go too soon and the whole project is lost. But then you think of what this genetic material is doing when it's building and growing and maintaining. There's so much more purpose in there. That's what we're talking about. More perfect, right? Is that it can provide a greater service to. They're all essential services, but it's a more critical, or it's a more long-lasting service to the whole. Okay, because when the outer layers decompose, right, it's the same. Okay, now here we tie it back. We tie back that the state of fruit to the state of heaven. I'll do it, even though I never really liked eating fruit growing up. But if we're comparing it to heaven, then we got to compare it to heaven. It is the same in heaven. The deepest levels there are closer to the Lord. So they are in a more perfect state than the more superficial levels. If you think of the Lord as the purpose within the fruit, right, then there's these layers getting closer and closer to the purpose. That is why the deepest heaven enjoys more wisdom, understanding, and therefore happiness than the heavens below it. It is the same in every heaven individually. Okay. So even if you're looking at this big, large scale, you've got the spiritual world moving from outer to inner layers, just like a fruit is, within each community in the spiritual world. So within, let's say, a spiritual level of heaven, you have here the inner spiritual, the middle spiritual, the outer spiritual. Everything is organized in this way. Yeah, that's the divine form. Feast your eyes on that. It is the same in every heaven individually. Did I say that already? I don't know. Go back and check the tape. It is the same in people. It continues down. It is the same in people devoted to the good done by love and to the truth espoused by faith. Their inner part is more perfect than their outer part. So with you, with all of us, doesn't it feel like, as I was talking about before, there is this outer mess, tangled thoughts, tangled feelings, tangled behaviors, this stuff that feels like this is not the real me. I sometimes just wish I could get rid of all this stuff. There's got to be something that is more like the core in me. That's the more essential, where I really want to be, who I really want to be. There is that. There are those, like the equivalent of those seeds in you. There is a more perfect, more purposeful, more essential inner part to us. And so if you find yourself tangled up in the outer stuff, to me, it's a bit of a comfort to know, look, this stuff is here, but it's temporary. Just like the outer coating on a seed is rough. I'm thinking of walnut right now because there have been these squirrels around our house that leave their little walnuts places. It's rough, and it doesn't seem to have that much life in it, but deep down in there is this amazing potential for a whole tree and for life. That's what happens in each one of us individually. We have less perfect and more perfect parts to us. And you can see that anytime you want by noticing in the course of a day, how aggravated are you? Like right now, I feel like hey, this is really fun. I feel like I'm tapping into cool understandings of these concepts. I'm trying to describe them well, and I'm feeling a bit happy. When I was setting up this, so we're at home because there's a pandemic going on, and I have to set up all this stuff because this show has to have me drawing and have you there. So it's a bit of a complicated setup, and there's like wires and things everywhere. And I was going this morning, and there was all these setbacks, and I wasn't feeling that great. But now I'm feeling great because I think I'm moving inward to some of the more perfect states in me. But you got to have those outward ones, because those outward states are helping you deal with something very practical. Like if you didn't do that setup, this is like a callback. Comedians will do a callback where they reference a joke they made earlier. I'm not saying I'm a comedian, but I'm saying I'm calling back to earlier content, because I was saying before that just like the pulp or the outer shell of the seeds is useful to get you somewhere, but then it falls away. That outer state I was in when I was fiddling with all this equipment and trying to mess with these files and stuff, that where I was aggravated and am I going to do this on time or whatever, that state had to happen so that we could get here, which is the purpose of this, which is for us to gather around these ideas and think about them. That state had to be there, the outer state, and now it's gone. That state's gone, and here's where we are, and this is the state that's being recorded, right? And so it can be played out over and over again. That's the DNA that was going out to make this. Am I making sense, or do I just sound totally like a crazy person? I'll let you decide. Leave a comment. Let me know. Do you see what I'm saying? Like that, these patterns are happening all the time. They happen all the time. And you can see that in the stuff in your life that seems like, why is this in here? Where is it moving the seed forward? It is the same in people devoted to the good done by love and the truth espoused by faith. Their inner part is more perfect than their outer part. What forms the environment for the inner self, after all, is the warmth and light of heaven, while for the outer self it is the warmth and light of the world. It is the same with every perfect form. Its inmost core is the best part. The inmost core is what is meant by the middle. So, there's an inmost core in you, and it's the best part. There's an inmost core in the events of life and how things are laid out. There's an inmost core to the layout of the entire expanse of existence, and there's something really good in the middle of everything, even if that's at times hard to see. And that's the news from heaven. How do you like it? Does that work? Can you look inside yourself and see that sometimes? Have you ever looked into your life events and found that? Let me know in the comments. Don't turn this off. Don't tune out. I know I ended the show, but there's something very important I need you to look at, because I want to stop for a word from our sponsor really quick. So what do you want to say? You guys are the sponsors for this. We're a nonprofit, and we need you donating to make this kind of very specialized programming possible. I have a letter here from my good friend, Tim, who is our director of development, letting you know how you can support us. So let's go through it, News from Heaven style. You may not know that we depend on donor support to create our programming, to share the insights and ideas contained in the writings of Emanuel Swedenborg. Well, we do. And we wanted to share an opportunity to support our recently established endowment fund for offTheLeftEye. This is how we keep going. This fund provides us with the ability to offset the costs of production and staffing. Consider your ability to make a gift and visit otle.causevox.com and become part of our community of donors. This is how we make these videos that then hopefully go out and moved you in some way. Sorry to draw you like a weird box. And then by your supporting us, it allows us to move out and affect the next weird box person who might benefit as well.